My character's name is Maria Green. She's the daughter of Irish Catholic immigrants and grows up in a middle-class household in Washington, D.C. During World War I, she's a nurse in France and comes home after her parents have died to live in New York City with her aunt, where she works as a nurse in a hospital. She becomes involved in flapper culture, but after her friend dies from drinking denatured alcohol, she rejects flapper culture and decides to become a nun, experiencing the Great Depression from that perspective. As a nun, she works in a homeless shelter and talks to people who have lost the most as a result of the stock market crash. The reason I created my character was because I wanted to work with an outsider's perspective on the depression and a flapper who experiences the consequences of her actions and of the results of this type of culture, because I felt that was not addressed enough in the literature. It was a bit challenging to create a character arc for her and to avoid making her too self-righteous. And it was also challenging to get into a nun's perspective, but still make the journals interesting. I especially enjoyed this project because I enjoy writing from a different historical era in the style of historical fiction, especially the 1920s and 30s, because I find that interesting. I will now read a journal from Tuesday, November 20th, 1920, which happens to be Election Day. The journal prompt is Overcoming Adversity number 1. What challenges have you overcome? I voted today. These words will have far less momentousness in the future than they do now, but today these words signify the culmination and success of millions of women working fearlessly and tirelessly over the centuries so that I, Maria Magdalena Green, and millions of other women could vote in the United States of America and participate in that most fundamental ritual of democracy that has so long been held from us. I voted for one Warren G. Harding, a Republican, not because I myself hold loyalty to the party, but because his promises of a return to normalcy speak to me personally, after having experienced formative years that no sane person could describe as normal. I served as a nurse in the Great War. I've experienced atrocities on the front lines that I can never forget. I have felt the souls escape men as they died in my very own arms. Now normalcy is all I seek. I suppose my definition of normalcy may differ greatly from that of Mr. Harding, but in my time abroad I have met many people of many diverse walks of life and perspectives, but so far I have met nobody who advocates war and the needless killing of men, which I assume is not something Mr. Harding understands in the word. One's idea of normal must generally be defined by one's experiences in childhood, whereby I would be taken to have a rather strange definition of the word, given my rather out-of-the-ordinary childhood. I would not describe my early years as easy. Challenging might be a better word. I am an Irish Catholic, but better off than most, as my late father was a professor of English at the Catholic University in Washington, D.C. This meant that I attended the parochial school along with other Irish Catholic children, but in addition, I had a private tutor from whom I got special instruction in German, French, English, and music. My knowledge of French got me a leadership position when my regiment of nurses was stationed to a French army base in spring of 1917, as I was one of the few who could communicate fluently with the French officers. The other skills, my parents would be disappointed to hear, have been less useful in my life thus far, except in impressing potential employers, the U.S. Army being one, and in conversing with the odd foreigner. I work now as a nurse at St. Vincent's Catholic Medical Centers in Greenwich Village, where I do meet some Italian and German speakers, albeit few. Many who I meet here wonder how I came to move from Washington, D.C. to New York City, and why it is that I now feel the urge to work. I give the same answer every time. My parents died 1 week apart in early 1917, and because I was unmarried and only had a very small fortune for myself, I joined the United States Army as a nurse to be of some use to my country. After the war, I moved to New York City to live with my aunt in her Greenwich Village apartment, but in order not to be a burden on her, who herself does not work, I found a job as a nurse, where I'm working now at age 24. Thank you.